Alistair Weaver here for Edmunds with the best new cars of 2022. From A to Z, we'll talk you through all the latest new cars, trucks and SUVs and explain why they may or may not matter to you. It's pretty exhaustive.
Exhausting.
That as well. So if you're interested in one brand or another, check out the YouTube chapter breaks. And if you want to learn more about any of the vehicles you see here, head to edmunds.com for our full in-depth reviews. The Acura MDX was new last year, and an engine aside was all new. It's a 3-row SUV and it's a bit bigger than before, to the benefit of people and cargo. There's also a new Type S version if you prioritize the S in SUV. We're living with an MDX as part of our long-term test fleet, and generally speaking, we're a fan. But, and it's a big but, we're still infuriated by the touchpad control system. Make sure you try that before you buy. The bigger news from Acura this year is the rebirth of the Integra. The old one was a poster boy for fans of high-revving Japanese hatchbacks. The new one retains a swoopy roofline and an enthusiast agenda. There'll be a 1.5-litre turbo engine at launch, pinched from the Honda Civic Si, but would be astonished if it wasn't joined in due course by a Type S version with the engine from the upcoming Civic Type R. Marvellous. Now here's our very own Mark Takahashi with the best of Audi.
Audi's smallest sedan enters its third generation for 2022 and simultaneously grows up and becomes a bit more fun in the process. Its turbocharged four-cylinder produces 201 horsepower this year and is joined by a mild hybrid system for improved fuel economy, especially with the all-wheel drive version. The interior shares some of its DNA with a Volkswagen Golf GTI. Both feature a tech-heavy and driver-oriented cockpit layout. But the Audi is a lot more interesting. It has all sorts of sharp angles to give the cabin a totally unique look. Not all of our editors are sold on the A3's new exterior design, but the rest of the car is so good, you should definitely add it to your shopping list. The S3 ditches the mild hybrid system for a spicier version of the A3's turbocharged four-cylinder. This time, massaged to produce 306 horsepower. Choosing the S3 over the A3 drops the 0 to 60 time from an estimated 6.3 seconds to 4.5 seconds. Of course, if you need the ultimate small sports sedan, look no further than the RS3. It shares a common platform with the other two, but the inline-4 is swapped out for a 401 horsepower turbocharged 5-cylinder. Audi says the RS3 should clock a 0 to 60 run in 3.8 seconds, which is roughly the same as the Mustang GT500. There's all sorts of mechanical wizardry to help rein in the power in turns, such as a new torque splitter differential and torque rear mode, which can divert all power to one rear wheel. The e-tron GT is Audi's all-new electric sports sedan, and just look at it. It looks incredible. Audi takes the Porsche Taycan and applies a futuristic design inside and out. You could totally see Tony Stark driving around in this. Well, if he was still kicking. We'd say spoiler alert, but come on, Endgame came out years ago. There are two e-tron GT models available and both have gobs of power and range between 230 and 240 miles. The normal version is rated at 469 horsepower, though the launch control mode temporarily boosts this to 522 horsepower. Then there's the RS e-tron GT, which makes 590 horsepower normally, or 637 horsepower using launch control. Selecting the RS e-tron GT lowers 0 to 60 time from 3.8 seconds to 3 seconds flat. Not enough to outrun a Tesla Model S Plaid, but you also don't have to deal with that car's dumb yoke steering wheel. If you liked Audi's first electric vehicle, the e-tron, but its price was a little high, the Q4 e-tron might be right up your alley. Planned to start right around $45,000, the Q4 e-tron is a compact car that's part hatchback, part SUV. The standard configuration, which Audi called the Q4 40 e-tron, is a single electric motor that powers the rear wheels only. It makes a modest 201 horsepower, which isn't stellar for a luxury EV, but it should be enough to make the Q4 e-tron feel speedy around town. The Q4 50 e-tron adds a second motor up front to give the Q4 all-wheel drive and an estimated combined output of around 300 horsepower. Audi says the Q4 e-tron will deliver about 250 miles of range on a full charge. There is also a Q4 Sportback e-tron for buyers that are willing to give up a little passenger and cargo room for a more stylish exterior. BMW's all-electric i brand grows with the introduction of two all-new EVs. First up is the iX, a mid-size SUV with enough power and refinement that you might be able to get over its rather challenging face. It debuts in a single trim called the xDrive 50 and will start around $85,000. BMW says the two electric motors will make 500 horsepower, and when the iX shows up stateside, it should have 300 miles of range on a single charge. But those are just early estimates. If an electric sedan is what you're after, BMW has you covered there too. When the i4 goes on sale, it will be available in two trims. The top-of-the-range i4 M50 is the first time BMW's M badge has ever appeared on an EV. The M50's dual electric motors make 536 horsepower and 586 pound-feet of torque. That's more than the current M3. The less powerful eDrive 40 models make do with 335 horses and 317 pound-feet of torque. Both i4s use the same 84 kilowatt-hour battery pack, but the M50's bigger wheels, stickier tires, and extra electric motor make it less efficient than its little brother. BMW says the M50 will have 245 miles of driving range, and the E40 should do exactly 300. But again, those figures are preliminary. The new 2 Series gets a ground-up redesign that makes it longer and wider than the car it replaces. When it goes on sale next year, the 2 Series will be available with either a 4 or 6-cylinder engine. The top-of-the-line M240i models will make 382 horsepower and 369 pound-feet of torque. Sadly, the option for a manual in the 2 Series is gone, and all models will route their power through an 8-speed automatic transmission to either the rear or all 4 wheels. Cadillac is phasing its way out of internal combustion with a bang. The new CT5V Blackwing supercharged V8 kicks out a ridiculous 668 horsepower that's sent exclusively to the rear wheels through a 6-speed manual transmission. There's an automatic transmission available too, but that's not how we drive the most powerful Cadillac ever made. If 668 horsepower strikes you as a little too much, then maybe the CT4V Blackwing is more your speed. The smaller of the two Blackwing Caddies is powered by a twin-turbo V6 instead of that raucous V8 and makes 472 horsepower. It's not as much as rivals like the BMW M3 or Alfa Romeo Quadrifoglio, but it's still more than enough to get you out of bed in the morning. Oh, and it comes with an old-school manual too. We like that. On the opposite end of the automotive spectrum from the Blackwing brothers is the new Cadillac Lyriq. Funky name aside, the Lyriq is an important car for Cadillac. It's the company's first electric vehicle and paves the way for Caddy's electric future. When it goes on sale, the Lyriq will be available at first as a rear drive only machine, with an all-wheel drive version coming later. Cadillac is targeting more than 300 miles of driving range with a full battery and says the Lyriq will be able to charge at up to 190 kilowatts from a compatible DC fast charger. Like other high-end Caddies, the Lyriq will offer features like Super Cruise and an AKG audio system. But you won't have to pay an arm and a leg for all the niceties. The Lyriq is going to start at a reasonable $59,990, about as much as a fully loaded Tesla Model Y, and thousands less than rivals like the Audi e-tron and Jaguar I-Pace.
So what is Chevy up to when it comes to electric vehicles? Well, quite a lot actually. For instance, they're bringing out the Bolt EUV. Now that's similar to the regular Bolt hatchback, but it's longer, so you're gonna get extra interior legroom and cargo space. It also uses the same battery as the regular Bolt, which gets an EPA estimated 247 miles of range on a full charge. There is one electric motor mounted to the front wheels, making 200 horsepower, so you're not gonna take any pink slips from Tesla Model Y performance owners anytime soon. But while the Bolt EUV may lack the outright power of some other electric vehicles, it does offer GM's hands-free driving technology called Super Cruise as an option. It also has an affordable starting price right around $34,000. Now, what about the regular Bolt EV hatchback? 2022 is the first year that Chevrolet decided to give it a refresh with new exterior styling and some important interior upgrades. For instance, there's now a larger screen, new seats, and a new steering wheel design. But unlike the Bolt EUV, the regular Bolt EV does not offer Super Cruise. And that's worth noting if you're interested in hands-free driving. It also gets the same battery pack as before, which is EPA estimated at 259 miles of range on a full charge. And the refreshed Bolt is actually less expensive than the previous Bolt that it replaces. Now, we've already tested the 2022 Chevy Bolt, and you can check out Edmunds.com to see where it falls in our rankings among other electric vehicles. When you think Chevrolet, the first thing that should come to your mind right now is, of course, the mid-engine C8 Corvette. And this is its newest version, the high-performance Z06. It'll be out in the latter half of next year, and what do we think about it? Well, it's good-looking, it's fast, and it's here to fulfill all of your Ferrari fantasies with the most powerful, naturally aspirated production V8 ever. Any questions? Well, if you do have questions, head on over to our video from the Z06 official reveal so you can see it up close, learn some more details about it, and of course, hear that engine in action. The refreshed Chevy Equinox was supposed to debut as a 2021 model, but it got pushed to 2022 because of you-know-what. So what's new? Well, there's sharper exterior styling, and there's this, the sporty-looking RS trim. Now, unfortunately, the RS doesn't get any extra power. All Equinoxes are still powered by a turbocharged 1.5-liter four-cylinder engine, making 170 horsepower. That's not gonna set your hair on fire. But the new looks and an affordable starting price around $27,000 make it worth a look. For 2022, the Chevrolet Silverado gets some major upgrades. Most of all, there are improvements to the interior that we've been calling for since, well, the day this one debuted. But you can now get a 12.3-inch digital instrument display and a huge 13.4-inch center touchscreen. Chevrolet also says they updated the seats and improved the material quality inside. But that's not all. There's also this, the ZR2. Now, just like the Colorado ZR2, this is going to be the most hardcore off-road ready version of the Silverado that there is. You get a 6.2-liter V8 engine standard, and it's making 420 horsepower. On top of that, there are electronically locking differentials, chunky 33-inch tires, new springs, and new skid plates. So in all, 2022 is a huge year for the Silverado, mostly because it may finally give Chevy a half-ton interior that can stack up against Ford and Ram. Stay tuned because we can't wait to get our hands on one of these.
Fisker Inc. is one of the newest EV automakers on the block, and the release date of their debut vehicle, the Ocean SUV, is quickly approaching. Due in late 2022, the Fisker Ocean is roughly the same size as today's Honda CR-V, so it should have plenty of room for 5 people and their stuff. The interior is also quite the looker with modern styling, a pivoting 17-inch touchscreen, and digital instrument panel. That big touchscreen also features a row of buttons underneath to give you some shortcuts to commonly used controls. In keeping with the green theme, there are no animal products, and many materials come from recycled and renewable sources. As for power and range, the base Sport model will come with a single electric motor mounted at the front axle. It produces 275 horsepower and delivers an estimated 250 miles of range. Other models feature dual motor all-wheel drive setups with 540 to 550 horsepower on tap. Fisker says that range for these pricier models should start at 340 miles and extend past 350 miles depending on configuration. An available solar roof could also add a few miles. The company also claims 0 to 60 times from 6.9 seconds in the base version to 3.6 seconds in the most powerful models. They are targeting more than 300 miles of range on a full battery and 300 horsepower for the all-wheel drive version. The previous Ford F-150 ventured into new territory with an aluminum body that weighed hundreds of pounds less than its predecessor. The newest F-150 isn't as transformative, but essentially improving on all aspects that made the old model so appealing. Turns out, we just had to wait a year for the big news to drop. That would be the F-150 Lightning, a fully electric version of the best-selling pickup truck. Under the hood is, well, nothing, because the Lightning has a large front trunk, or frunk, like you'd find in many EVs. The battery pack is located under the floor and powers 2 electric motors, one in the front, one in the rear. The standard range model is expected to deliver 230 miles of range on a full charge and produce 426 horsepower and 775 pound-feet of torque. That's more torque than any F-150 currently on sale. You can also opt for the extended range model, which targets 300 miles of range and bumps output to 563 horsepower. Factor in unique upgrades like an independent rear suspension, 15.5-inch touchscreen, and the Lightning looks like a significant step up from the gas-powered F-150. Prices start at just under $41,000 for a work truck and around $54,000 for an XLT with more creature comforts. At the other end of the truck spectrum, Ford is also introducing a brand new pickup for those with limited parking space and more modest budgets. The Ford Maverick is a compact truck with unibody structure rather than the body-on-frame construction more commonly used on larger pickups. That means its ride is much less harsh and jittery than its bigger brother, the Ranger, which is a body-on-frame pickup. Other Maverick highlights include a choice between two intriguing powertrains, a hybrid 4-cylinder for front-wheel drive models, or a turbocharged 4 if you want all-wheel drive. Unfortunately, its very attractive base price of under $22,000 is somewhat offset by an interior loaded with hard plastics. The Genesis GV60 is the Korean luxury brand's first swing at an electric vehicle. It looks pretty different from the GV70 or 80, representing a key shift for the brand from internal combustion to battery power. The GV60 rides on a new dedicated EV platform and will come as either rear or all-wheel drive. Genesis has released preliminary range estimates for the GV60 and claims a maximum driving range of 280 miles on a single charge. More powerful models will have a range figure closer to 229 miles though. Keep in mind that these numbers are for the Korean market GV60, and some of these specs could change when the car goes on sale in the US next year. The GV70 is a more conventional compact SUV offering from Genesis, and it relies on two gas-powered engines for motivation. The base model gets a gutsy 2.5-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder engine with 300 horsepower and 311 pound-feet of torque. Step up to the 3.5-liter twin-turbo V6, and you get 375 horses and 391 pound-feet. Both engines send their power through an 8-speed automatic transmission to a standard all-wheel drive system. The interior also features niceties like a standard 14.5-inch infotainment display, a number of standard driver aids like blind spot monitoring and standard wireless charging for your smartphone. The GV70 starts at $42,045, but if you aren't careful with the options list or just want goodies like the more powerful engine and massaging seats, prices can jump well north of $60,000. That's right on par with rivals like the BMW X3 and Mercedes-Benz GLC. But the Genesis offers that X factor of being an all-new offering that might turn more heads than a run-of-the-mill Beamer. The GMC Hummer EV is a full-size pickup that, as its name suggests, is driven solely by batteries. Deliveries of the aptly named first edition models are beginning now. This fully loaded model costs just under $115,000 and comes with 3 motors that produce over 1,000 horsepower combined. GM says that immense amount of power can scoot this mammoth pickup from 0 to 60 in 3 seconds. It also features a rapid charging system, GM's hands-free Super Cruise system, and a crab walk mode that allows for diagonal movement at crawling speeds. It took a few years for GMC to fix the mistakes, but the heavily refreshed Sierra 1500 is finally competitive against its rivals. Cabin upgrades include a redesigned center stack, punctuated by a console shifter, and a 13.4-inch center touchscreen. The standard V6 engine has been dropped and replaced by an uprated version of the turbocharged 4-cylinder, which now develops 420 pound-feet of torque. There are also 2 new trim levels. The AT4X is essentially the GMC version of the Chevy Silverado 1500 ZR2, so expect even more off-road upgrades than the standard AT4, plus additional luxury features. Last year's Denali Ultimate package is now its own separate trim level and upgrades the Sierra with unique extras like laser-etched open-pore wood and leather trim throughout the cabin. Standard on the Denali Ultimate and optional for the Denali is GM's Super Cruise hands-free driving system. The Honda Civic got a major overhaul for the 2021 model year, and for 2022, the big news is the addition of the Civic Si. Once the most powerful Civic you could buy, the Si is now sort of a middle ground between the Civic Sport and Civic Type R, which is coming next year. The new car will only be available as a sedan, and its 1.5-liter turbocharged four-cylinder makes a dead-even 200 horsepower. Weirdly, that's 5 fewer horses than the previous Si. But the new car combats the slight power loss with a lighter flywheel and wider power band than before. That little engine is connected to a 6-speed manual transmission that sends power through a helical limited-slip differential to the front wheels. The Si also has a new individual mode that allows you to tune the steering weight and responsiveness of the engine to your liking. The suspension is stiffer, the seats are scooped out, wheels are 18 inches, and there's an option for stickier summer tires if you're so inclined.
At least for now, the Honda Civic Type R is no longer with us. So buyers who are looking for a small car with high horsepower really only have the Volkswagen Golf R or the John Cooper Works Mini to choose from. But that changes now with the performance-oriented Hyundai Elantra N and this, the Hyundai Kona N. Both are powered by a turbocharged 4-cylinder engine, and they offer a cool overboost feature, which provides extra horsepower when you need it. Now, specifically for Elantra N owners, if you'd like to roll your own gears, you can get a 6-speed manual transmission. But no matter which model you pick, both of them get an upgraded suspension, larger brakes, and summer tires for extra grip. You want my advice? Get the blue. One of the most highly anticipated debuts for 2022 is the Hyundai Ioniq 5. Now, this is the first purpose-built electric vehicle for Hyundai, meaning you get a few EV-specific benefits, like good cargo space thanks to the hatchback layout, and a small front trunk space that should be good enough for, like, laptop bags. The Ioniq 5 is about the same size as a Honda CR-V, but its wheelbase is actually a foot longer, and that should mean that you can find generous legroom inside. We also like its cool Blade Runner styling and fast charging capability. Hyundai is targeting about 300 miles of range on a full charge for the single-motor rear-wheel drive version. Now, there will also be an all-wheel drive version with 2 motors. That gets more power, but a little less range. Regardless, this feels like a big swing out of the gate for Hyundai, and a significant entry into the electric vehicle market. Ford isn't the only automaker trying to bring the compact truck back. There's also this, the Hyundai Santa Cruz. Now, in some ways, it takes a similar tack to the Maverick. It's got a unibody design and turbocharged 4-cylinder engine. I still kind of can't believe this thing is real. It looks more like a concept car with its evocative front end and a stubby rear end. But inside, you'll find pretty traditional styling, similar to other Hyundais, like the Tucson. On the road, we like its smooth ride and quick acceleration. Now, at starting just over $25,000, it's a bit more pricey than the Maverick. But check out our head-to-head comparison video to see how we think those two stack up. Hyundai's compact crossover, the Tucson, gets fully redesigned for the 2022 model year. Now, this model is longer than the one that came before it, which means you're gonna get extra space for passenger legroom and in the cargo area. Inside and out, the styling on the Tucson is pretty bold for a small SUV. Plus, you can get desirable features like wireless smartphone integration and ventilated front seats, making the Tucson both stylish and functional. You've got a couple of powertrain options to choose from, starting with a standard 4-cylinder engine. However, we found in our Edmunds testing that that thing is pretty slow. Then there's this, the Tucson Hybrid. It's got more power, and it's rated to an EPA estimated 38 mpg combined. Now, we've found that the hybrid version just is an elevated experience overall, and as a result, it's scored significantly higher in our Edmunds small SUV rankings. Finally, there's a Tucson plug-in hybrid. That's got even more power, plus 33 miles of all-electric range.
Also new for 2022 is a fully redesigned Infiniti QX60. I got to drive it, and you can get a link to the full review in the description below. Pew! For 2022, the Jeep Grand Cherokee gets a total overhaul.
There's the regular Grand Cherokee, and there's this, the Grand Cherokee L. That rides on an extra 5 inches of wheelbase, and it gets 3 rows of seats. Both models will offer a standard 3.6-liter V6 engine or an optional 5.7-liter Hemi V8. If you're looking for something cleaner or just want to extend your range, the regular Grand Cherokee now offers Jeep's 4xe plug-in hybrid system with up to 25 miles of electric range. But back to the L. Pricing for the Grand Cherokee L starts around $39,000. As for the regular Grand Cherokee, we don't know pricing just yet, so stay tuned to Evans.com when that information becomes available. For 2022, the Jeep Wagoneer is back, along with its Grand Wagoneer brother. Now, keep in mind, the Grand means more premium, it doesn't mean bigger. And together, the two Wagoneers will do battle with the Lincoln Navigator and the Cadillac Escalade. And the Wagoneer brothers are coming into the ring with a pair of V8 engines. For the Wagoneer, that means it gets a 5.7-liter Hemi V8. And the Grand Wagoneer grants access to a 6.2-liter doozy of a V8. But behind those V8 engines is the most luxurious interior we've seen from Jeep to date. I mean, just look at this thing. In the Grand Wagoneer, you can get up to 5 digital displays, including a digital instrument cluster, a large center touchscreen, and check this out, even a screen just for the passenger. Now, predictably, you're going to have to pay for a Jeep of this size and this stature. The Wagoneer starts right around $70,000, and a Grand Wagoneer like this starts right around $90,000. Now, on the Grand Wagoneer, Jeep does throw in 4-wheel drive to save you a little money. I mean, it makes sense. It is a Jeep.
The Kia Sedona minivan is no more. In its place is this, the all-new Kia Carnival, which is far more distinctive than its predecessor. Look no further than the angular Land Rover-style headlights and cascading waterfall grille to realize that this new people mover means business. Inside is a cabin trimmed with high-quality materials along with exotic features like ventilated second-row seats. The Carnival is a major improvement over its old Sedona, and its value proposition is still quite attractive. However, its V6 is thirstier than the Toyota Sienna's 4-cylinder hybrid or the Chrysler Pacific hybrid. The EV6 is essentially Kia's take on the Hyundai Ioniq 5. Like the Hyundai, this Kia is a compact vehicle whose profile suggests a small crossover or tall hatchback. However, the EV6's sleek, high-tech design stands in stark contrast to the Ioniq 5's 8-bit styling cues and minimalist interior. While both vehicles share a set of powertrains, the Kia has 2 additional options to give EV6 shoppers a wider selection to choose from. At the bottom end is a rear-drive model with a smaller battery pack and a modest 167 horsepower. The range-topping EV6 GT, this one here, it features a larger battery pack, all-wheel drive, and 576 horsepower. Kia says the EV6 GT will sprint from 0 to 60 in under 3.5 seconds. The redesigned Sorento launched last year with a turbocharged 4-cylinder and a hybrid, like that one right there. New for 2022 is a Sorento plug-in hybrid that promises 32 miles of EV range. The Sorento plug-in starting price of over $46,000 might dissuade some buyers, but remember that you may qualify for federal and state tax incentives that bring costs down. It's been a while since the Kia Sportage was truly competitive with other compact SUVs. The Sportage wasn't a bad car by itself, but it was smaller and not nearly as refined as its rivals. The 2023 Sportage, due next spring, looks to completely upend our expectations. It's significantly larger than the current model, now growing to rival the spacious Honda CR-V in terms of overall length and passenger and cargo room. At launch, the Sportage will be powered by a 2.5-liter 4-cylinder engine. Kia says electrified versions are coming in the near future, but won't elaborate. We think you can look to the Sportage's mechanical twin, the Hyundai Tucson, for guesses on where Kia will expand the lineup. The crown jewel in the Land Rover lineup is the Range Rover. Problem is, it hasn't been fully redesigned since 2013. And even though Land Rover has updated the Range Rover over the years, other large luxury SUVs have seriously raised the bar. For the Range Rover's nearly $100,000 starting price, you should expect a lot more. It seems like Land Rover agrees. They're wasting no time delivering a brand spanking new Range Rover for 2022. The model year designation is a little confusing as the old and new Range Rovers will both be 2022 vehicles. Make sure you do your research before plunking down money for a 2022 Range Rover. You'll be glad you did, as the redesigned model rides on a brand new platform that promises improved comfort and better noise control. Also on deck are a vastly superior infotainment system, newly available third row of seating, and a road-reading adaptive suspension. Long-term plans include a plug-in hybrid joining the lineup in 2023, followed by a fully electric model for 2024. The future looks bright for Land Rover's biggest SUV.
Trigger warning: if you've ever been bitten by a black widow, screamed at the sight of the predator, or frequently have flashbacks of middle school, back when they used to force you to find the area of two trapezoids, avert your eyes now. The somehow even bigger spindle grille of the LX600 may be too much for you, okay? But for everybody else out there, the LX600 is the newest version of Lexus's biggest and baddest SUV. This titanic body-on-frame SUV shares its underlying architecture with the Toyota Tundra pickup and the all-new, but only available overseas, Toyota Land Cruiser. That means that it has a sizable interior and mechanical bits to transport you and 6 of your closest friends in relative comfort across rocky terrain. Now, some of the off-road features include full-time 4-wheel drive, multiple traction settings, and it even has crawl control, which is kind of like cruise control but for going up and down steep grades. Now, if you're sticking closer to the pavement, the LX600 wows with options like the ultra luxury trim, which actually replaces the middle bench seat with 2 adjustable and massaging seats with a full console in between them. Now, we're just hoping that Lexus has figured out this infotainment issues because we counted as many as 6 screens in this cabin. You know what? The grille doesn't really bother me, but it looks even better on the F Sport trim. The Lexus NX is a sharply styled crossover, but other than that, we really don't have any reason to commend it. It merely exists to fill what would otherwise be a compact-sized SUV size hole in the automaker's lineup. But luckily, we were able to get behind the wheel of the brand new redesigned NX, and we're happy to report that this one is much better than the outgoing one. The interior is far less busy, an actual human being can fit in the rear seats, and the cargo area is big enough for those weekly Costco runs. But who are we kidding, you guys? You know what everyone's talking about, the new infotainment interface, which is finally a touchscreen. So those days of touching and having to deal with that annoying touchpads are finally a thing of the past. The Lexus NX comes in 4 flavors, but we recommend skipping past the NX 250 because its 4-cylinder will definitely garner some frowns. Now the NX 350 adds a turbo, which is actually pretty powerful. The NX 350H reverts back to the normal 4-cylinder engine, but then it adds a hybrid component. And finally, the NX 450H Plus is a plug-in hybrid with 36 miles of electric range and 302 horsepower. This efficient crossover is actually the fastest of the NX lineup. And according to Lexus, this thing can go from 0 to 60 in 6 seconds flat.
We've driven the new Lucid Air in pre-production form a couple of times now, and we've come away pretty impressed. Like Rivian, Lucid is a startup luxury EV brand from the US of A, taking on the might of the Germans and that other EV old-timer, Tesla. As a luxury sedan, the Lucid Air does battle with the Tesla Model S, Porsche Taycan, Audi e-tron GT, and the Mercedes EQS. It's outrageously powerful. The sold-out launch edition called Dream has 1,111 horsepower, and the Grand Touring model, which you can order for around $140,000, still has 800, or more than twice as much as a Porsche 911 Carrera. Lucid's also making bold claims about the car's range, and we look forward to putting a production version through our full Edmunds EV range test. Handsome, luxurious, and blessed with lots of tech, the Lucid is a welcome addition in a hotly contested part of the market.
The CX-50 is Mazda showing its wild side with more rugged looks than SUVs that came before it. It's a brand new vehicle from Mazda and kicks off their aggressive product push that will include the new CX-70 and CX-90 SUVs further down the line. The whole point of the CX-50 is to attract a set of buyers who want an SUV they can use every day that comes with a smidgen of off-road ability. Think Subaru Outback or Kia Sorento. Its more squared off body is certainly more rugged, and there are a lot of plastic cladding on the side to help protect the bodywork from nasty off-road pinstriping. Power comes from one of two engines. Both are 2.5 liters, but the base engine is naturally aspirated while the optional engine is turbocharged. Mazda hasn't released power output figures yet, but we think they'll closely mirror power figures from the CX-5. Inside, the CX-50 isn't a huge departure from the Mazda we currently know. The seats and interior dimensions are different, but the biggest difference is that the CX-50 now features dedicated off-road modes. Now, we've yet to see or drive the CX-50 and pricing info is still under wraps. We'll be sure to put it through its paces as soon as we get our hands on one. The MX-30 is a new EV from Mazda that's big on style but short on range. With a range of just 100 miles on a single charge, the MX-30 is better suited for use in cities, and it makes overnight charging at home an absolute must. Since the MX-30 isn't new from the ground up, but rather a car based on an older platform, the room for batteries was limited. Mazda had to make do with what they had, and we assume their future EV efforts will have increased range. That said, the MX-30 is also built with the environment in mind. Recycled materials line the interior space, and cork is used for some of the interior trim instead of metal or plastic. It's worth noting, however, that the MX-30 is only on sale in California.
The world might be obsessed with SUVs these days, but the launch of a new Mercedes C-Class is still a big deal. Inside and out, it takes its lead from the new S-Class, which is no bad thing. The S-Class is Edmunds' top-rated luxury sedan for 2022. There's a plethora of new tech, and almost everything's controlled by a curvaceous touchscreen interface. No doubt there'll be plenty of options, except that is in the engine bay. For now at least, all you can have is a C300 with a 2-litre turbo and a mild hybrid system. We're looking forward to driving it in early 2022, so keep an eye on edmunds.com/news for the full review. We've always been big fans of the Mercedes GLB, which combines strong style with surprising practicality in a compact shell. The EQB is essentially an electric GLB, so the omens look good. There'll be a couple of versions at launch, the 300 and the 350, with different power outputs and battery options. One to watch out for in the months ahead. Mercedes is a bit late to the EV party, but they've arrived with a full keg. The EQE sedan joins the larger EQS, replicating the E-Class S-Class lineup we know so well. It looks a lot like the EQS2, but will be a little smaller and a little more affordable. A rear-wheel drive EQE 350 will be available at launch, but expect all-wheel drive versions with more power to follow, including an AMG. The EQS is already with us, and we've tested it extensively. As I speak, the 450 plus version sits atop the Edmunds EV range test leaderboard, having travelled 422 miles on a single charge, smashing its EPA estimate of 350 miles. There's much to like about it. As you'd expect, it's quiet, composed and luxurious, and it's a chunky but, it's let down by a surprising lack of rear head and even legroom, certainly when compared with its sister car, the S-Class. Check out our detailed review for more. Mercedes has added 2 tiny rear seats to the new SL and asked its performance brand AMG to do all the legwork. What we've ended up with is a Mercedes AMG SL that looks a fair bit like the AMG GT. As you'd expect from an AMG, it's overtly sporting, with 2 gas engines developing either 469 or 577 horsepower. A lot or a real lot. We've already driven it, and while it's less aggressive than the GT, it's not as cosseting as some of the more luxurious SLs of old. That's surprising given the average age of the traditional SL customer. And it's doubly surprising given that the Mercedes has ditched the ultra-luxury S-Class Cabrio, hoping the 4-seater SL can play both roles. We'll see.
We don't even think Mitsubishi would argue with us if we said that the Japanese manufacturer has been lost in the weeds for the last few years. The once innovative builder of the Lancer Evolution rally car and turbocharged Eclipse Coupe has been relegated to also-ran status with the truly terrible cars like the Mirage and Outlander Sport. But its alliance with Nissan is just now starting to bear fruit in the US, and the brand new Outlander represents a major step in the right direction for Mitsubishi. Based on the well-received Nissan Rogue, the Outlander is a 3-row compact SUV that is significantly improved over its predecessor. The seats are now comfortable, the driving experience quite pleasant, and the interior design and materials are much nicer than before. In short, being behind the wheel no longer makes you feel sad. Mitsubishi, please do the same to the rest of your lineup immediately. If you're like us and aren't exactly enthralled with the 181 horsepower engine, you might want to wait until next year when Mitsubishi pulls the wraps off the new Outlander PHEV. This plug-in hybrid will have more power and offer about 30 miles of EV range on a full charge.
Nissan is adding to its EV fleet with the new Nissan Ariya. It will initially be launched with a long-range battery pack, and you can get either front or all-wheel drive. Now, the base model gets 238 horsepower, and Nissan says it delivers up to 300 miles of range. But listen to this. The range-topping Platinum Plus model features all-wheel drive, 389 horsepower, and an estimated range of 265 miles. When the Ariya launches late next year, prices will start around $47,000, and make sure to look for a standard range battery pack sometimes after that. Other cool Ariya highlights include a cool minimalist interior design, Nissan's fantastic zero-gravity seats, and it'll be the first Nissan to get the Pro Pilot Assist 2.0 package, which gives you the option to use hands-off single-lane driving. After being on the market for over a decade and a half, Nissan has finally redesigned the Frontier midsize pickup. Now, I had to say finally that many times because that was a tired truck. The changes were first previewed back in 2020 when Nissan made the interesting step of outfitting the outgoing Frontier with a new 3.8-liter V6 engine. Now, that engine is now in the new Frontier along with the outgoing model's basic frame. Other than that, everything else has been completely overhauled, from the rugged exterior design to a vastly improved interior. I mean, you guys, the touchscreen interface is actually modern, and you can get it with certain driver's aids like adaptive cruise control and a 360-degree camera. Better yet, its starting price of around $29,000 is only slightly more than last year's model. You know, it's still a little rough around its edges and is not our favorite midsize pickup, but we do like it more than the Ford Ranger, and we finally think that it can compete with the GMC Canyon, Chevy Colorado, and Toyota Tacoma. So, Nissan's 3-row Pathfinder is also newly redesigned, and like the Frontier, we honestly wish that it had come sooner. Now, the previous car was on sale for 8 long years before it took a short hiatus, returning completely redone for 2022. Like the Frontier, the Pathfinder styling is more muscular this time around. Now, we don't know what kind of black magic Nissan has employed here, but the cabin feels bigger, and the third row is actually able to seat adults comfortably. And the crazy thing about that is that the new one is the same size as the old one. So honestly, I don't know about it, but hey, it works. The redesigned Pathfinder also has a new 9-speed automatic, which we actually prefer over the old CVT. And as expected, there are all sorts of new luxury features as well, including a wireless charging pad, digital instrument panel, and a heads-up display. All right, friends, now we're looking at the Rogue compact SUV, which I gotta say looks really good, and it was actually redesigned last year. But one critical change warrants its inclusion onto this list. You see, the 2021 Rogue and the model it replaced were both powered by a 2.5-liter 4-cylinder matched to a CVT. Needless to say, it wasn't great. Despite the engine specs on paper, the CVT was slow to respond. So the 2021 model was improved, but it still had a sluggish acceleration. So Nissan heard our pleas, and they are replacing the old one with a new turbocharged 1.5-liter unit with 201 horsepower and 225 pounds-feet of torque. Now, it is still paired with the CVT, but it definitely feels peppier. All right, so Nissan drops the numbers for the newest incarnation of its 2-seat sports car, now simply called the Z. I mean, that's what everyone called it anyways. This time around, the Z is powered by a twin turbocharged 3.0-liter V6 engine with 400 horsepower and 350 pounds-feet of torque. Nissan hasn't quoted acceleration times just yet, but we have managed to get 0 to 60 sprints right around the 5-second mark in a couple of Infinitis with the same powertrain. So we expect the Z to be lighter and faster than those cars. The interior is completely redesigned with standard features including Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, adaptive cruise control, and keyless entry. so the tech is finally up to date. I know you guys are gonna be happy about that one. The twin-turbo V6, along with the available forged wheels and mechanical limited slip, also shows that performance is also top of mind.
Porsche's venerable sports car gets 2 new flavors this year. Generally, Porsche's GTS trim has always kind of been the sweet spot for buyers looking for great performance, but without the wallet-busting insanity of a turbo model. The new 911 GTS is no different. Its starting price of just over 138 grand isn't outrageous by 911 standards, and you get a power bump over the 911S, plus more powerful brakes, unique tuning for the adaptive suspension, and more. You can also spec the lightweight package, which shaves about 55 pounds by removing the rear seats and using lighter glass. If you really want a track day all-star though, check out this, the 911 GT3. Its flat 6 is naturally aspirated and road lines at 9,000 RPM. It sounds incredible at full tilt. It comes with all sorts of unique tuning and aero upgrades to absolutely pound the pavement at your local racetrack. You can also spec the street-friendly touring package for a more subdued approach. The Cayenne's core lineup hasn't changed, but there's a new Turbo GT variant available for the so-called Cayenne Coupe. You know, the Cayenne with the swoopy roofline. It boosts the output of the 4-liter V8 to 631 horsepower, 90 more than the standard turbo. We've had a chance to drive it, and this luxury hot rod is seriously quick and adept at tackling corners at high speeds. When this Cayman generation debuted in 2017, we were underwhelmed by its quick but soulless turbocharged 4-cylinder. Porsche started its apology tour with a 6-cylinder GT4 in 2020, then with last year's GTS 4.0. This new GT4 RS stands at the top of the lineup, bumping the flat 6's output to 493 horsepower, then adding track-ready components like a swan neck rear wing, lightweight bucket seats, and RS-specific suspension components, sticky tires, and a whole load of aero tweaks that make it the fastest and most track-capable Cayman ever. Enthusiasts might be bummed to learn that it doesn't come with a manual gearbox, but Porsche's PDK is lightning quick and isn't likely to disappoint. The GT4 sits at the pinnacle of Porsche's mid-engine offerings, and you're gonna have to shell out at least 143 grand for the privilege. Porsche's Taycan electric sedan also gets a few tweaks this year. The infotainment system finally adds Android Auto connectivity, and there's a new remote park assist option which lets the owner park the Taycan from outside the vehicle. Like the 911, the Taycan also gets this new GTS model, which slots between the Turbo and the S in terms of price and performance. The Porsche Macan is one of our favorite small SUVs, and a number of changes should make the 22 model even better. The base turbocharged 4-cylinder gains an extra 13 horsepower and 22 pound-feet of torque, while the V6s in all other trims move down 1 tier. That means the engine in last year's GTS now comes standard on the mid-tier S model, while the uprated V6 from the Turbo moves down to the GTS. Now that the Turbo's V6 is now in the GTS, the Turbo doesn't have an engine of its own, so it's gone from the lineup. Aside from the engine swaps, the Macan's exterior styling has been reworked, and many of the cabin's hard buttons have been swapped for flat panels with capacitive touch buttons.
The Rivian R1T became the first fully electric truck to hit the US market, and it immediately impressed us, claiming the Edmunds Top-Rated Editor's Choice Award for 2022. Marking a vehicle that exceeded expectations and delivered something genuinely new. This is a truck a little bit bigger than a mid-size that can out-accelerate most sports cars, handles superbly, will go off-road, and has great practicality and versatility. But I'm going to stop wittering on now. Check out my full review video for all the details. And having driven the truck, we're certainly excited to try the new SUV version, the cunningly titled R1S. It's basically the truck with the rear end lopped off and an SUV back. Similar interior, same power, similar price, starting at around $70,000. Looking forward to that one.
All right, you guys, so listen, we honestly didn't know if we would get a second generation BRZ. As you might expect, affordable sports coupes don't really have the same kind of profit margin or sales numbers as your everyday SUV. So we were surprised to see a brand new BRZ surface for this year with all the little things we loved about the old version miraculously still there. Now the engine increases from 2.0 to 2.4 liters, and since the BRZ weighs roughly the same as the previous model, the extra power is immediately noticeable. at the Edmonds test track, a 2022 BRZ was able to go from 0 to 60 in roughly 6.1 seconds, a whole second faster than the old model. Now the BRZ's exterior is also a little sleeker than before, while the cabin is only slightly updated to look a bit more modern. Now this is still a bargain price back to basic sports car, which is why it's our Edmonds top rated sports car for 2022. Look at how cool this thing looks right here. Subaru's ultra popular Forester SUV gets a brand new wilderness trim this year. This off-road themed model begins by slightly increasing the Forester's ride height to 9.2 inches, then adds all-terrain tires and a front skid plate. You also get an upgraded roof rail system that can support up to 800 pounds of static weight. And that's perfect for all of you rooftop campers out there. Now we got to drive the wilderness earlier this year in Oregon, and while it doesn't transform the Forester into a rock crawler, even though it is on rocks, these are fake, it does offer extra protection when you're trying to venture off the beaten path or driving through the snow. So now we're looking at the Outback Wilderness. Most of the stuff that we actually said about the Forester's wilderness trim also applies to this larger Outback as well. Powered by the Outback's optional turbocharged engine, upgrades for the Outback Wilderness include all-terrain tires, a skid plate, a lifted ride height to 9.5 inches, and a roof rack capable of supporting up to 700 pounds of static weight. Subaru is also entering the EV game with the Solterra. The Solterra is a four-door compact SUV with a battery pack under the floor, sending power to two electric motors, one at the front wheels and one at the rear. Subaru says the Solterra has a total output of 215 horsepower and about 250 pounds-feet of torque, giving you an estimated 220 miles of range on a full charge. So that puts it in the neighborhood of the base version of the Ford Mustang Mach-E and the Volkswagen ID.4. But of course, you know there's a Subaru twist to it. All-wheel drives come standard, as does Subaru's very effective slippery terrain traction system called X-Mode. Plus, the Solterra has 8.3 inches of ground clearance. Check out our reveal video for the full scoop. The Solterra could be a strong pick for drivers who regularly deal with snow and ice when it comes out in mid-2022. The Subaru WRX Sport Sedan has its fans, but with outdated tech, so-so acceleration, and an interior that's just, ugh. You pretty much have to be a Subaru fanboy to get one. Quite frankly, there are much better small performance cars for the money. So, Subaru is hitting the reset button with the fully redesigned WRX. The turbocharged four-cylinder grows from 2 to 2.4 liters, but the engine power is only up 3 horsepower to 271. Thankfully, you can still get a 6-speed manual, and the CVT automatic is said to be retuned for more responsive performance. New adaptive suspension dampers should introduce a higher level of comfort for drivers that aren't constantly living in time attack mode.
For as early as they were to the hybrid game, remember, the original Prius came out in 2001, Toyota has been frustratingly slow to adopt fully electric vehicles. Up to this point, they haven't had a long-range EV at all, while Ford, Chevy, Hyundai, and of course Tesla were off to the races. Thankfully, if you've been waiting for your Toyota EV, you won't have to wait much longer. This is the Toyota BZ4X, and it was developed in conjunction with the Subaru Solterra. Since we've already shown you that car, you pretty much know what to expect here. The styling cues are pretty similar, and underneath it's basically the same car. But when the BZ4X comes out later next summer, it will have a unique single-motor front-wheel drive option. Toyota says that will boost its range up to 250 miles on a full charge. Sales of the Toyota Corolla are dropping fast. So what can Toyota do to flip its fortunes? Take the iconic Corolla name and put it on a compact crossover. And here it is, the 2022 Toyota Corolla Cross. This is slightly smaller than the more adventure-y RAV4, with softer styling and the interior design and running gear from a Corolla. Think Corolla sedan, just bigger. This is a safe choice for Toyota, and we think it's probably a safe choice for Toyota buyers too. Sure, it's likely pretty slow, but at first glance, check out that cargo area. Seems to make it pretty competitive with the Jeep Compass, Subaru Crosstrek, and Volkswagen Taos. Much of what we've already told you about the Subaru BRZ also applies to this, the Toyota GR86. Subaru and Toyota teamed up to produce two distinct versions of the same underlying car. Why pick the Toyota? Well, there's different styling and slightly different trim levels. And to be honest, styling feels like the reason to pick the 86 if that's what you like. We found that the BRZ does have some upgraded equipment that makes it a better performer in our Edmunds testing. But this 86 sure is a looker. You may have noticed a theme this year where automakers are taking some of their older models that had frankly long past their expiration dates and finally giving them the updates they need. On an unrelated note, hey, it's the new Tundra. For 2022, the Tundra gets a twin turbocharged V6 engine, rear coil springs for a more palatable ride, and, well, this chin. But what we're really looking forward to is the available hybrid powertrain, which develops 437 horsepower. To top it all off, the Tundra is still a capable workhorse. Some versions can get a max tow rating of up to 12,000 pounds. We've already gotten a new Tundra in for testing and put it up against a Ford F-150 for reference, so check out that video to get a closer look.
The new Mark 8 Golf GTI serves as the entry point to the Golf range for US customers. VW has pulled the regular Golf from its lineup because the rise of compact SUVs means people are trading their hatchbacks in for crossovers. That said, the new Golf GTI is more capable and tech-laden than ever before. Its 2-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder pumps out 241 horsepower, making it the most powerful GTI Americans have ever been able to buy. It still comes with the option for either a 6-speed manual or a 7-speed dual-clutch automatic transmission. Like every GTI before it, power is sent exclusively to the front wheels, but the Mark 8 has a few tricks. The first is Volkswagen's clever front limited slip differential. First seen in the Mark 7, the diff is now controlled by a new central brain that monitors everything about the car in order to generate the most grip possible. The result is a car that's shockingly capable despite its hatchback appearance. The interior of the Mark 8 is new too, but we're not the biggest fans of how every button has been replaced with a touch panel or clunky capacitive touch buttons on the steering wheel. Despite the interior quirks, there's no arguing with the performance on offer. And its starting price of $30,540 means it's still relatively affordable too. If the most powerful GTI we've ever been able to lay our hands on does quite do it for you, then there's always the Golf R. Its engine has been boosted to 315 horsepower, and whether you pick the stick or the automatic, power is sent to all 4 wheels. In the old days, the Golf R was more of a GTI Plus, but with the Mark 8, the R has been sent into an entirely new league. The all-wheel drive system is new and can send torque to the wheel that needs it most, which means more grip than ever before. It's also been endowed with stronger brakes, stickier tires, and standard adaptive suspension that means it can go from supple cruiser to a tied-down sports car with a touch of a button. It comes in just one trim that brings everything as standard too, which means less fussing with the options list. Since it shares its interior with the GTI, the touch control quirks remain. But goodies like a head-up display, adaptive cruise control, and interior ambient lighting are all standard. The price for the most powerful Golf ever made? $44,640. That might be a pretty penny, but for the first time in a long time, the R might be the Golf to go for. For far too long, Volkswagen didn't have an offering in the compact SUV segment, but they fixed that with the introduction of the Taos. The crossover competes with other compacts like the Subaru Crosstrek and Kia Seltos. VW's offering is one of the biggest in the class though, and offers great head and legroom for second-row passengers, while also offering enough room in the back for all their stuff. Its 158 horsepower comes from a 1.5-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder engine, and the Taos can be had with either front or all-wheel drive. Its $24,190 starting price might be a little high for the segment, but it offers neat features like a digital instrument cluster and an optional panoramic sunroof. Alongside the all-new Taos is a Volkswagen stalwart, the Tiguan. The current model has been with us since 2018, and VW is finally giving it a facelift. Power output from the 2-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder are the same, 184 horsepower and 221 pound-feet of torque, but the exterior gets freshened up with standard LED lighting and some new styling that gives it a bit more presence. The interior gets a minor redo too, with a new steering wheel, digital gauge cluster, and redesigned climate controls. Volvo has a new EV out, only it's not really all that new. The C40 Recharge is an XC40 Recharge with a different roofline. Otherwise, the two cars are pretty much the same. That means you're still getting 2 electric motors, and the interiors, you guessed it, they're pretty much identical. Google's Android OS is in charge of infotainment duties, and Volvo's digital gauge cluster is standard on all C40s. Volvo is quite literally on the charge these days as it turns its focus towards EVs. In keeping with that theme, there's also now mild hybrid engines Volvo's calling B6. They make a bit more power than before and should be more efficient too.
And that's it. Hope you found it useful, and a big gold star to anyone who actually made it all the way from A to Z. Even the producer's laughing at that one. Over the course of 2022, we'll be testing all of these vehicles on road and track to find out whether they really do live up to all the hype. To keep up to date with all of that, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and why not peruse our new editorial hub at edmunds.com/news. If you're feeling benevolent, you might even bookmark it. And if you're looking to sell your car, head to edmunds.com/sellmycar and we'll make you a cash offer. Right, that's it from all of us. Stay safe, and thanks, as always, for watching.